know is what that vocabulary means. So what does consecutive mean? Like in order? Like what would be next to it? What's sequential? Take those if you have taking notes. What does an integer mean? What type of number? What type of numbers fall into our integers? Whole numbers. But what does like look like?
Negative and positive.
Negative, positive, and numbers without any what?
Fractions.
No fractions. Okay, so when we're looking at consecutive integers, we aren't talking about any fractions. Really what we're looking at today, the big piece is that they are consecutive, which means there is a pattern. So we're looking for things with a pattern today. So, consecutive integers are numbers that we count in order. I say I'm thinking of a number. If I am thinking of a number, what did we say on Friday we would do if we knew it was a number?
Put it as
Assign it a variable. You can pick X, you can pick Q because you feel sorry for it.
about Z. I don't think anyone uses Z.
You can pick whichever you want. Okay, so I'm thinking of a number, and we are going to represent it with a variable. The next number, so what would be consecutive to 4? 5. What would be consecutive to 7? 8. What would be consecutive to -1? 0. So how far apart are those numbers? 1, right? They're always one larger. So the next consecutive integer would be 1 more. Okay, so 5, consecutive to it would be 6, which would be 5 plus 1. Okay, the next consecutive number would then be 7, and how far away is 7 from 5? 2. Well, 1 more than that, right? So it's really n plus 1 because we're adding 1 more to it.
Can we just do +2?
Right. And this would just be a whole list of numbers that continue to just be 1 larger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whenever we are doing things in a pattern, we want to find what that distance is between them each time. All right, and this time consecutive integers, they're 1 apart. Sorry, my pen is not working super well today. So if we want the sum, what does sum tell us to do? Add of 2 consecutive integers. Well, we know we need to add 2 things. You don't need to write this down, it's already filled in, right? I'm adding something plus a something else. The first one that I'm adding is a number. We said a number would be a variable, and then the next one would be 1 larger. Does that concept make sense? Maybe, kind of, sort of. Are we alive? Not really. We're not super alive. Okay. So if I say, class, I want you to find the sum of 3 consecutive integers. What would we do for sum? Add. And what would 3 consecutive integers look like? What would our first one be?
N.
What would our second one be?
N plus 1.
And what would our third one be?
N plus 2.
And because it's sum, we would be adding all of those up. We also can talk about consecutive even and odd integers. So consecutive still means sequential. But what does it mean if I mean consecutive odd? What does that mean? So what would be consecutive odd to 3? 5. And then what would come next? 7. So if I say I'm thinking of a number, how are we going to label a number? N. And now I want what's consecutively odd to it. How far away is 7 from 5?
2.
2, which is then weird because they're like, well, shouldn't odd numbers be an odd distance apart? Nope, because we are counting every other. So now if I go from 5, 7, 9, so what would my next one in the list be? n plus 4. How about consecutive even? I'm thinking a number. What's my first one going to be? N. So consecutively even. So if I'm thinking of 4, what would be consecutively even to 4? 6, and how far apart are those?
2.
2. And so this list looks exactly the same as my other list. I mean, right, this list could go forever. So that's why we have this in the same category. So each time on consecutive even and odd, we're getting n, n plus 2, n plus 4, n plus 6. It's the same each time. Okay, so if we want the sum of 3 consecutive even integers, okay, so we want the sum. What does sum tell us to do?
Add.
Add of 3 consecutive even integers. So consecutive even integers, what's my first one going to be? N. What's my second one going to be? N plus 2. What's my third one going to be?
N plus 4.
N plus 4. Sum tells me to add them up. Is there a way I could write this in a more simplified format?
Yes.
What could we write?
3n plus 6.
Because we know at this point that we can combine like terms. And so the sum of 3 consecutive even integers would be 3n plus 6. Okay, usually at this point my students are kind of like, huh? But here's how this gets all put together. Okay, and we're going to do practice with this in a little bit, so don't freak out too much. You don't need to write down every single word from this example. Okay, we want to then be able to look at problems that say something like, find 3 consecutive integers. Oh, sorry, that went off. Sum of 33. Okay, so it's sort of like I'm thinking of a number, you don't know what it is, here's some information about it, you figure it out. Okay, so find 3 consecutive integers that have a sum of 33. Okay, so 3 consecutive integers. What do 3 consecutive integers look like? Okay, so consecutive integers is our list over here because they're 1 apart. Okay, so n. What's my second one? N plus 1. What's my third one? And I want to take the sum of them. So what is sum asking me to do?
Add.
Now, what does sum really mean?
Answer.
The answer to addition. So they have a sum of 33. So it says the answer to the addition should be what? The answer is 33. Is this something we know how to solve?
Yes.
Yeah? So what do that n plus 1, and n plus 2 all simplify to? 3n plus 3. And is this something that we know how to solve?
Yes.
Yeah? So what are we going to do to solve this?
Subtract 3.
Divide by 3. Now here's where my students get themselves in trouble. One of the things that I actually have learned about my students who are stronger at solving story problems is that they are just wanting to get to an answer. Check, I solved for the variable. Check, n equals 10, I'm done. But does that actually answer what this problem is wanting us to do at all? No. Do we even care that this says n equals? No, that n has nothing to do with it. That n is a value that we filled in as a space filler to help us. What is this problem actually asking us to find? 3 numbers. Do we have 3 numbers yet? No. How many do we have?
1.
1. So we need 2 more. So we have 10. What's going to be our next number?
11.
Okay, Mitch, how did you get 11?
10 plus 1 is 11.
Because you just did whatever the next number is.
And because 10 plus 11.
And if we put it in up here, right, but don't overthink this, guys. What's consecutive integer to 10? It just is the consecutive of how many we need, because that's what we set up the equation to do. How do we feel about that?